The topic of this video is corrections, and specifically holes and pop marks. On the Holes tab, the first thing we have is hole echolocation tolerance. Whatever value I put in here, if I were to put a 32nd of an inch, let's say, Raptor will look throughout the part for any holes that might be within a 32nd of an inch of one another in the X direction. If that is so, it will average the location of those two holes out and make them the same dimension. The advantage to this is that these holes will now be drilled at the same time if they're on different surfaces, or they'll be drilled one after the other on the same surface without moving in the X dimension. This is just to help expedite the drilling process and make the part processed faster. Now, the value you put in that box should not be any larger than a 32nd of an inch. That way you're not moving a hole more than 1/64. And most people will leave this at 0. The next thing we have is convert holes, oval holes, to two holes of hole length bigger than or equal to what value. If you have some really long slotted holes that you want to manually burn later on, you just want to drill the ends of the slotted hole, you can select that and then put whatever dimension in here you want. If you don't want to mill a slot that may be 8 inches long or 10 inches long or something like that, you could simply select this and then just put a value in here that's less than whatever that value is. Let's say it's 7 inches. The slot itself is 8 inches long. So in this case, it would anything less than 7 it would leave alone, but anything greater than 7 it would just drill holes at the end of the slot. The next choice we have is to reference holes from the start. This will force all holes to be referenced from the beginning of the material. The next one is to create scribes for countersinks. So if you have some countersunk holes on your part, but you're not going to countersink them on the let's say a drill line, this will scribe the outside diameter of the countersink, and then of course the drill line would drill the hole, the original center hole. So this would give you an idea of how deep you would need to actually make it when you're countersinking it later on. If you want to delete overlapping holes, of course you can just select this box here. Hole size limit. What this is for is everything larger than this value will be turned into a cope. So if you wanted to program a large circular cutout on the web, you could use that. You could do that using a hole and then turn it into a cope via corrections. And then if you had a coper, that would automatically cope that out. Or if you had a drill line that has the ability to cope via milling, it would then mill that as a cope. The next choice we have is round holes as pop marks. If I select this and put a value here, everything between this value and that value would be a pop mark. Everything from this value up, as I mentioned, would be turned into a cope. Please note that the hole size limit to change it into a cope will always be applied before it will apply this. So if this value, you happen to make this value larger than your other one, you would never ever have a hole that is turned into a pop mark because it would have already been turned into a cope right here. So in this case, or in this scenario, it would have applied this to every hole that was larger than 3 5/16 and turned it into a cope. And then by the time it tried to turn it into a pop mark, there would not have been any holes larger than this. So we would never have that actually take place. Just note that you need to make, if you want to use this, it would have to be smaller than the size you want for your hole size limit. So if you want to convert your holes to scribes, you can do that. You can scribe the outside diameter or outside outline of the hole if you want to do any of those. You can also put a mark inside that scribed hole. mark an X inside the scribed hole if you would like. Generally, people are not doing this, although if you have a petty writer, you might want to do that. And then when it gets to the drill line, you'll make sure that between the two of them, they're calibrated the same in the X dimension. If you want to remove any holes that are outside a particular safety distance from the edge, maybe we say 1/4 inch or something like that. If there is a hole that's within 1/4 inch or less of the edge, Raptor will automatically remove that for you via corrections. This is totally your preference as well. As you prefer, use this or not. It just might help you to keep you from drilling something on the edge of the material and maybe damaging a tool. The next tab we have is the Pop Mark tab. Here you can add center marks with the tool. These center marks are based on the overall length of the part. If your part happened to be 10 foot long, these marks would be put at the 5 foot mark. And you can tell it where to put them, whether you want it just on the web, just on the top flange, or the bottom flange, or the underside, or on multiple surfaces if you wanted to do that. So it's totally as you please. If you want to delete pop marks that are overlapping holes, that's probably a good idea. If you want to delete pop marks that are overlapping other pop marks, you can do that too. And if you want to remove pop marks outside a safety distance from the edge, you can do that too. And as you see, I've put 1/4 inch in here once again, just like I did with the holes. That way, with mill tolerance and things like that, we don't get a pop mark or a hole that's too close to the edge. We're pulling them back or we're getting rid of those. Here, the last thing we have is converting to X scribe. So I can actually change any pop marks into an X scribe. So instead of just the drill bit coming out and leaving a simple mark, the scribing tool, whether it be on a petty writer or using one of the scribing tools on our drill lines, it would do an X instead. And the length of those legs, so the length of those lines in the X, is all controlled right here. So you can control how long you want those lines to be. Maybe you want them to be 1/4 inch long, something like that. And it will make an X with 1/4 inch lines. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching.